I am here with my coffee. It's nice and warm, and I want to thank you. Julia, you're the first one on here from the UK. Thank you so much and being here. I really appreciate you, Julia, and I hope that you're warm where you are. I want to thank all of our good friends. My name's Brad Zockel, and I am here in our Barnes studio here, and what a year it's been. We're sharing that. You can find out on our newsletter as well. It is 9:30, a little bit after 9:30 here a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to talk about our celebration of Christmas and take a look in the book of Luke, some wonderful things here. But first of all, I want to say hi to you. Johnny, good to see you, and thank you for your ministry here, Johnny. I really do appreciate it here. Vicky, glad to see you here from Detroit. I really appreciate Catherine and DW also being here. And there's Miss Evelyn, and she is all over from Kentucky. And joining us, Renee, good morning to you. In Ohio, we have another one of our wonderful moderators, Teresa, here doing such a wonderful job. Hannah, whose name means grace. We have Anna in the Bible. Hannah, what a wonderful name and a wonderful meaning here from the scriptures. Missouri's checking in. Linda, good morning. Troy is also from the Buckeye State. Thank you for coming in here. Mark and Cecilia, I greet you in the name of the Lord. And Brenda, also good to see you back, and she's greeting everybody here as well. Sherry, welcome aboard. And Neona, I thank you for being here too. Paul, hey, good to have you here, Paul. I appreciate it. Marie, good morning to you. And Johnny, thank you for the partnering. I really appreciate your call for that. DW, thank you for being here. Steve, I say good morning, sir, back to you as well. And PM, thank you for the greeting. Mary from Phoenix is also here. Cold rain, huh, Julia? Okay, you be careful. That's when I get the snow. Now, I don't get the cold, but cold rain. When I get wet and cold, that's when I start getting the flu here. Hey, good morning. Snow in Delaware, really? North Carolina got hit yesterday. I learned at church last night. Here in South Carolina, we're protected pretty much by the mountains. We haven't had anything yet, but it is cold. Arizona, Franklin, I don't think he has any there. I believe in Santan Valley, he's pretty safe. Tom from Texas is also here. Let me see here. Let me see something while we're looking at our good friends here. Want to get things together, and I just thought about something that I want to take a look at. So I'm going to type in something on the laptop while we go. Ashley, good morning to you. Glad to have you here. I appreciate you. And I just wanted to say as well, if we have some new partners, and they have joined us, and I want to say hello to them as I'm looking over here on our website and see if we have some new partners that signed up to help us in our ministry. And so let's take a look here. We have Tommy Abrantes is also joining us, and thank you so much, Tommy, for being part of our partnership here. Joshua, Benita, and Timothy, as well as Stephen Brubaker, thank you for coming aboard and helping out, being part of our prayer team and getting the newsletter as well. All right, let me see. Let me take a look here, and we're going to go through. What I'm going to do is, I see Johnny has a good question, and we will talk about that. All right. We're going to go after some announcements. Then we're going to take a look in our Christmas story. We're going to go back to Luke chapter 1, tell you some more things here. Oops, somebody wants to say hi. Hang on. All right. You want to say hi to everybody? Somebody wants a little attention here. Okay, just woke up. This is our barn cat. This is a feral cat that we adopted. This guy is a great mouser. My wife thinks I spoil him. He hangs around like a puppy. He really does. But he's a great job. But every once in a while, he tries to figure out what's going on in the camera. And I think this one time when I was talking with you, he actually fell asleep while I was sitting here holding it. And he may just do this right now, but I think he's just woken up. But he sits over here right off the camera on the desk as I'm talking here, too. Steve Joyner, good morning to you. PM, very good. Mary, great to see you here. And let me see as we have down here. Good morning to Reese's as well. And then Betty, good morning to you as well. And thank you so much, Pam. Pam from Pittsburgh, glad to see you. And then hey to Bohemias, good to see you back, friend. And yep, Smokey Joe is sitting here completely content. And then, okay, we're going to talk about that, Renee. We'll get into that. Wonderful, thank you, Reese. Well, he's a good mouser. He's out there. We've really got a practical cat here. That's what I like. in here. So thank you so much for your joining us today. Penny from Bristol, Tennessee, up there with King University, where I used to teach. I taught the satellite class there as well. And let's see, DW is saying hi. You're getting complimented here. You see that on there? Okay, pay attention. All right. Dan, good afternoon. And then from Scotland, Dan, rainy and cold. Be very, very careful. Well, you're of a tough sort, Dan. I think you're going to be fine. You'd probably teach us a lot about taking care of cold weather too. All right. Let's see. Bear, good morning. And let me see. Sherry is also here. And Teddy, thank you so much for being here. And okay, do you want to say hi anymore? You want to take off here? Say it one more time. Don't act like you're not paying attention. You know that they're watching you. You want to go? All right, you go ahead. There he goes. Okay, he's hanging around a little bit. Get to work here. He walks me down every day. Every day he knows it's when it's 10:30. The funniest thing. And so he's in here a little bit too cold for him outside. All right, so let's do this right now. Let's get a couple of announcements here. I really do appreciate you being here. Johnny's mentioned the books. If you have a Christmas list here, you're just starting. I barely started my Christmas shopping. You can't really tell I did some, okay, but I'm over at the YMCA down here doing some therapy on my knee, and one of the ladies in there, when we do a check-in, she's finished her Christmas shopping, and I'm messing with her, but I said, I don't even want to talk with you. You come and everybody started laughing. I said, I don't even want to hear that. So every time I walk by when I'm checking back out, she goes, have you done your Christmas shopping? So I did a little bit. All right, but as we start looking at this season, it's also important that maybe there's somebody that we can bring a wonderful present to, or something that would help them in the Scripture. Now, I'm not claiming anything as far as the book being wonderful, but it does have treasures of Scriptures about heaven, and maybe you have an unsaved friend or somebody that needs comfort, and they could use the book. It's available on Amazon. There are two books. One is called Heaven, The Adventure Begins, and the other one is What is Heaven All About? And so those are both available for you on Amazon. And a purchase of those, a portion of that goes towards helps our ministry, in which we're talking about the new circuit this coming year, the wonder, the travel that I'll be doing, and then building up the studio here to enhance our podcasting and our broadcasting, and different new projects that we have. Boy, the horizon is wide. I'm really excited about that. So thank you so much for saying that. And good morning to you, our friends, as we go down here. It is wonderful to see our different friends at Canada. Donna from Canada. Doug is back. We're praying for your back, Doug. I know that it's very, very hard in that pain, and I've been continually praying for you. All right. Let me see what else. Okay, the Questions About Heaven podcast has been greatly received, and I just posted one this morning, another step up in our nativity story, and also questions about heaven. And so if you go to Questions About Heaven, and then that would be the podcasting, and it's free, it doesn't cost you anything. All right, so what I'm going to do right now is let's get right into our study, and then at the top of the hour, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and then we'll go to our questions. Once again, if you'd like to partner with us, help in any way. Now, I will tell you, any gift that you have, we are 501c3, and you can receive tax deductible, your gift is tax deductible, and helping on the new equipment that I need for recording, possibly a new computer for us to enhance our ministry. My traveling now, I'm going to be going coast to coast in this next year, should the Lord allow. Things along that line. If you want to help out in any way, this would be greatly appreciated. Be part of our prayer team if you wish, or at least just receive our newsletter. Go to theheaventour.com, theheaventour.com, and when you go in there, drop down menu on the left-hand side, and then partner. And you can get on there right now. And as we have our time, if I can remember, I'll come over here, and then as people will join, I'll just remember them, and then I'll say the name and tell you welcome aboard. So I want to thank you so much. Stephen Brubaker, thank you for being part of our group. And Timothy Kane, thank you also. I'm looking at a good list here, and I'll give some. And Karen Spearman, as you've seen her over on TikTok and here, she's also a partner, and I appreciate so very much you being part of that too. So we're looking at the nativity. All right. So what is this? What is a nativity? Well, as I said, you have a nativity, and so do I. It means a birth story. Mine was Bellevue Hospital, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, May 29th, 1959, about 7:30 in the morning. And I was born to my parents, Glenn Albert Zockel and Catherine Rose Zockel. Well, that's pretty much my, that's my nativity. You have a nativity too on those things. But when we talk about something so precious as Christ's birth, well, then Christendom has actually taken that word, and most people, saved or not saved, would say, well, that's really talking about the birth of Christ. So everybody has a nativity, but the nativity, where you find it in the scriptures? Matthew chapter 1 and 2 and Luke chapter 1 and 2. If you want to know the family tree, the genealogical line that also bookends, puts around this, frames this whole story, you'll find Joseph's family line in Matthew chapter 1, Mary's family line in Luke chapter 3, and both of them come from the lineage of David. Joseph's line comes through, and so he has the kingship right through his lineage. He's the adoptive father of Jesus, and the adoption into an inheritance is always given through the parents, given to the firstborn through the parents, the father. So the adoption it's still legal. It's still street legal on there. Comes through Joseph, whose line came through Solomon. Abraham, then to David, and Solomon on to Joseph. You can see the whole line there. You go to the line in Luke, and Luke, the physician, very exacting on details, starts all the way back with God. It takes you all the way up through David, through Nathan, son number 3, and his bloodline goes to where you have Mary. So then biologically, Jesus is of the lineage of David, and then this covers both, okay? So in there, you see this. Now, in this story, when we find it, we talked this morning about this, and I want to read this once again to you, and this is Luke. Now, what I love about this, the King James Version, boy, it's hard to beat the King James Version, bringing up the beauty, the poetic beauty. We have many wonderful translations, and blueletterbible.org will give you access to those absolutely free. Wonderful ESV, New American Standard Version, New King James Version, and all Young's Literal Translation, a number of very reliable ones. A Legacy translation, very obsessive with the original language. But when I read the Christmas story, I always like to go to the King James Version because of the sheer beauty and the tapestry of the words in here, which stay faithful to the original language, but are just put in an ornate way of which we're so familiar. And a key word comes out here, okay? There was in the days of Herod, the king of Judea, a certain priest named Zacharias in the course of Abiah. And his wife was of the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. And they were both righteous before God, walking in all the commandments and ordinances of the Lord, blameless. And they had no child, because that Elizabeth was barren, and they were both now well stricken in years. And it came to pass that while he executed the priest's office before God, in the order of his course, according to the custom of the priest's office, Zacharias' lot was to burn incense when he went into the temple of the Lord. And while that was going on, while the whole multitude of the people were praying without, which means outside, at the time of the incense. And there appeared unto him an angel of the Lord standing on the right side of the altar of incense. And when Zacharias saw him, he was troubled, and fear fell upon him. But the angel says, Fear not, Zacharias, for thy prayer is heard, and thy wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name John. And thou shalt have joy and gladness, and many shall rejoice at his birth. For he shall be great in the sight of the Lord, and shall drink neither wine nor strong drink, and he shall be filled with the Holy Ghost, even from his mother's womb. And many of the children of Israel shall he turn to the Lord their God. And he shall go before him in the spirit and power of Elias, which means Elijah, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just, to make ready a people prepared for the Lord. What a wonderful passage here. When you see this, what's John's message going to be in this double birth? John the Baptist over here and cousin Jesus over here. John's the precursor. This story is the prequel. Really, God's moving in the timeline of destiny in giving you the nativity. John's birth is also here as a start as you go through here. Why is he here? Well, what you see here is the angel is telling Zacharias, Your child is going to be an answer to what has been said when you look over here in Malachi chapter 4, verses 5 and 6 of the Old Testament. The last book says this. It's a very, very important passage here. And when it says this, I will send you Elijah the prophet, in other words, one like Elijah, before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. He shall turn the hearts of the father to the children, and the hearts of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse. He's talking about turning the hearts, these rock-hard hearts, into open, good soil for which the seed of salvation can be sown. This is it, okay? So, when you go back to 1 Kings chapter 18, who was Elijah? Man, Elijah is considered one of the great prophets. I mean, a tough guy, really something else. In the wilderness, like John, they're contemporaries. And you see this. And what did he do? When you go take a look in 1 Kings chapter 18 and see his ministry, you see a he's a rebel, just like John is. He's in the wilderness. He's calling to repentance. This is what John the Baptist is doing. John says, I'm going to imitate the practice of the Pharisees. If somebody wanted to become a Jew, but they were a Gentile, wanted to be baptized into the faith or immersed in the faith, they would be physically baptized. The Pharisees would actually, did you know this? They would actually be involved in immersion, in immersion of somebody. You have just washed away your Gentileness, and now you are a Jew by our recognition. They were evangelistic. The Pharisees were they proselytized of it. Well, you see this. John says, well, I'm going to imitate that. And this immersion, but it's not to wash away your sins. It's to be an open display of an inward love. You are identifying with Christ and coming up here. And later on in the years, we now continue this baptism of immersion in saying, buried in the likeness of his death, raised in the likeness of his resurrection, baptizing in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, as it says in Matthew chapter 18, verses 19 and 20. That's part of it. We're helping people identify with Christ after their salvation and to serve him and be there. Okay, so he does it so much, he becomes known. It's because Ioannes is a very common name, John, all right, just like it is today. If you come through, Kennedy Airport or Sky Harbor in Phoenix, and somebody says, hey, what are you here for? Well, I'm here to find John. And they're just going to stare at you. You're kidding, right? There are a gazillion people named John. All right? You have to have a delineation. Well, people are talking about, I want to go hear Ioannes. I want to hear John. Well, who? John the Baptizer. Oh, yeah, okay, he's over here, and he is over here in the wilderness. And so there is a speculation by some of the writers and some of the Jewish faith that John came from the Dead Sea Scroll area, from the Qumran community of those monastic residents who would be writing the Bible. It very well could be, we just don't know for sure. But it seems to be a strong hint about that he came up from this, and they would stare at the Dead Sea in the morning in prayer and call for the Messiah to come before they went through their daily ministries as well. And it could well be there, but we just don't have it for sure. All right? So here's Zacharias. And you have him down here, and as I said this morning, he is just a certain priest. Nothing special. He's an anybody. And we talked about this. And so there are so many people, and let me just encourage as we talk, there was nothing special about him. You go to Luke chapter 10, and the same word, King James Version, that's why I wanted to bring it to you. And there was a certain man walking along, and he got attacked by robbers. And a certain Samaritan came along. It keeps using this term, certain. Well, this Greek word is tis. If you're going to transliterate it, it's spelled T-I-S, tis. Well, what does it mean? It means anybody, of no specifics. It doesn't really mean of no importance, but it kind of does. It just means an indefinite. Wouldn't you like to be called an indefinite? Be called an anybody? And here's the thing, many of us aren't we? We're just there. We stand in line at the grocery store. Nobody moves away and goes, oh, it's you. It's Johnny. He's here. Move the line. Put him in front, man. He's the big guy, all right? Johnny, like myself, we're just regular people serving the Lord, and we get along with everybody, and we just have a good time. It's like that. Nobody comes along and goes, oh my goodness, it's Brad Zockel. Stop traffic. Get him in the front at the coffee line. This has never happened to me, all right? And I'm comfortable with it, very, very comfortable with that. We're just people of indefinite. We just do what we're supposed to be doing. It's like what it says in Luke chapter 19. Occupy till I come. Just do what you're supposed to be doing. And that's what we're doing, all right? And yet great things happen because why? What's the qualifier for the blessing? Verse 6, that they were righteous before God, Elizabeth and Zacharias. It just says he serves in this priestly line. This is her lineage, nothing else. It doesn't say, oh man, she can sing, or boy, can he, just speak and just shock people. No, it doesn't say that. It just says they're there. But they were righteous before God. Not like the Pharisees, the regular Pharisees said. If you are appearing righteous to people, then your holiness will go within you. It's sort of from the outside they were taught to come in. It's like to paraphrase the commercial years back. The one soda brand said, appearance is everything. Do you remember that? And it didn't last very long because it was an unpopular phrase to a lot of people. But they would say, appearance is everything. Even the sports star to which they gave that to says, I regret that I went that commercial. He goes, so many people attach that to my life thinking. Appearance is everything. But this was really the Pharisaic way. If I appear holy to you, then the holiness then imbues me. It just goes into me, and it's just, that's the way I'm going to be. No. The holiness comes from the Lord. Greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. It's from within. Okay? Nicodemus comes under this belief because he's a Pharisee, and Jesus says, oh no, you have to be born inside you, born again. Comes from within. Well, this is what happens. And they followed the Lord's ordinances and his instruction, and they were blameless. And these nondescript people, these ordinary people, that's what certain could mean, an ordinary people, are now written in the annals of eternal scripture because they just were ready and they serve the Lord. It's just like I shared this morning in another class. This is the tire iron, no doubt you've seen behind me hooked on the wall, and I brought it down because I thought, hey, this is certain. Okay, this is the epitome of that definition. It's a tire iron. I don't use this all the time, but when I need it, it's necessary. It's rusted. I retrieved it whenever I was cleaning up when we first bought the place outside the barn. I found a couple of different tools, as I told you, and this is one of them. This doesn't have a specific name, nothing fancy. It doesn't have artwork on it. It's just there. It is a certain tool, but when I need it, it's ready and it's very helpful. It has been helpful to me. It's a tire iron. And I think there are many of my friends here are the tire irons of Christendom. You are ready, you are faithful, nothing fancy about you, God bless you, but anybody can come to you. You're reliable. You're reliable. And that's what I want to share with you this morning is this. And that's what the Lord looks for. Where does it say that? Well, 1 Corinthians chapter 4. With what you've been given, are you faithful? Are you reliable? And somebody says, yeah, but I'm not as big as that person or as talented as that. And that very same scripture says, stop judging yourself. Or somebody comes along, oh, that's all you do. And it says in that same passage, don't let anybody else judge you. It's between you and God, because verse 5, every faithful Christian will receive praise. What does it say? The reward is given to the believers in there. Every time in all 7 churches in Revelation 2 and 3, all of those, how do they get the rewards? They're overcomers. Does it say, and you're going to get this because you've built a kingdom or you've become nationally famous? It just says to the overcomer, here's what you get. Crown of life, a great blessing, honors. It talks on that, all right? And it says this, to those who have been faithful. They're kept from the wrath of the tribulation, Revelation 3:10. Given blessings, great rewards. You have served and helping those less fortunate, Luke chapter 14, verse 13. And they can't recompense you. They don't go around making a big noise about you. You've served the Lord by serving them and helping them out. And it says in verse 14, at the resurrection of the righteous, you, my friend, you will be rewarded. What are these rewards? And somebody asked me, are these physical things? Are they intangibles? Are they actual literal crowns or crowns of honor by name? And the answer is yes and no, and I don't know. That's the best I can tell you. Crowns is crowns. It does say that. Now, is it talking about like the crown of life? Does that mean it's a crowning achievement? You now have eternal life? It very well could be. Does it mean you have a physical crown? Well, it could be, because around the throne you see that the elders, the 24 elders, throw their crowns down before the Lord. So it very well could be those Stephanos, that's the little name for an earned crown. That could be physical, but could it mean other things? Well, yes. Well, what are they? I don't know. But the scripture says they're plentiful and they are judged on a gradation of your sincerity to the Lord. 1 Corinthians chapter 3. Why'd you do what you did? Why did you serve the Lord? You know, did you do this to be seen? Did you do that to be seen? Well, then you got your recognition on earth and you won't receive it in heaven. So your reward will be very small. Done it in anonymity, done it in true service. Lord, I know this is a need that you have. I'll do or did you do it grudgingly? And I can admit to you, there are times I did some things in years past for the Lord, very gritted my teeth while I did. I'm not going to receive a reward in heaven. I did it, because everybody else is out there doing it. I might as well. Boy, I'd rather be home doing something, something, something. And I didn't have the right heart attitude, and that will reflect. But there are just some wonderful people that have served the Lord and have dropped everything to just help. I think about this one time. I was on my way to speak in Gatlinburg with my family. And it was a wonderful setup, a youth conference of many, many kids. And on the way over, we had this old car. Can't even remember the thing, the maker model. But through there, it just quit. Halfway, wasn't even to the Sevierville cutoff, heading to Gatlinburg. And on the highway, it just quit. And just all kinds of things. It got towed and everything. And I was desperate. I had to be there to speak that night. And it's a packed house over there in Gatlinburg. I called back to my church, and I said, somehow we puttered into a Wednesday's, or somebody dropped us off at the Wendy's down there on exit 407. And I called back before we had cell phones, on a payphone. And I said to my senior pastor, I'm desperate. So I don't know what to do. I can't get a hold of anybody over there. They never give me a forwarding number. I don't know who to contact. They're not answering the phones of the ones I'm trying to. And believe it or not, the very hotel was a rustic hotel. Many of you know the Wonderland Hotel out there is very proud in the fact is, are you ready for this? Of all places, they have no phones. They have no TVs, no phones. They are as rustic as they can be. And I'm like, oh, you can't be serious. I called the pastor, said, I'm desperate. We've got to get there. Do you know, this is a Friday evening, 2 gentlemen in the church dropped everything in the midst of an activity that they were doing and came and drove all the way out over an hour, and 2 of them, because one drove a car and the other one had the follow car, and they gave me their car for the weekend. The fellow's name was Rusty. Our family remembers today, all these years later, the sacrifice. He got in there and we were just overcome with joy and thank you so much. He's like, you have to go, you have to go. He didn't even want to be thanked. Got in a car and took off. I shouldn't have said his name because the Lord's got a great reward for him on there. Well, you don't know who I'm talking about anyway. But he went, nothing was ever said to anybody else in the church. I just could not believe it. You know, and those are those kind of people. All right. Well, there's a lot I could say. And I usually don't go into anecdotes, but I still remember that. It's wonderful. And I've just seen so many people do blessed things on there. And you've done them. You've done them. And the Lord's going to reward you. All right. Just on what you're accountable for. 2 Corinthians chapter 8 and verse 12. You have been faithful. You're accountable for what the Lord has put in your life. And you've been faithful in that. You're going to receive a reward. Tons more, I could say. Jesus says in Revelation 22 and verse 12, I'm coming, bringing my reward with me to give to each one as they have served on the earth. That's a promise to you. All right, let's go to our questions here, and let's march on through till the bottom of the hour. Okay. And thank you so much for being here. I do appreciate. If you're watching this later on, I want to welcome you and thank you so much. And I hope these teachings from the scriptures help you as well. Okay, Johnny, someone said right before you went off of TikTok, nobody is in heaven. They're all asleep, waiting soul sleep. Well, obviously this is false. Well, you know, what you do, the burden is on people when they start this soul sleep stuff. Number one, very quickly, because it could take me time to go into it, but Ecclesiastes, it shows a lack of Bible reading. The quote of saying that the dead know nothing of Ecclesiastes 9:5, immediately when I hear somebody say that, I know they haven't read the scriptures. Because as I will say very bluntly, even a middle schooler could read that chapter and know that has nothing to do with a Christian dying and going in the grave and soul sleep. Nothing at all. So it immediately shows me that the person is not a Bible reader, okay? But the other ones, when we're talking about that nobody is in heaven, then how would we answer Luke 15 when Jesus himself says, there's celebration in heaven in the presence of angels when a sinner on earth repents? Now, there are only two entities in heaven, angels and the redeemed. It wasn't the angels, he said, that we're celebrating. In the presence of angels, there's a celebration, all right? So how would you answer that? How would you answer Hebrews chapter 12, verses 22 and 23, when it says, if you go to heaven right now, what you will see is God the Father, the New Jerusalem, countless angels, and the spirits of the righteous being made complete. So what are you going to say about that? All right. And so it's just that if we look at the scriptures, we get answers to these things very clearly on that. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verses 6 through 8. Philippians chapter 1, verse 23. If I leave this body, then I will be with Jesus, which is far better. Luke 16, Lazarus dies, angels take him immediately to the presence of God. There's no waiting. Okay, the Bible, there's too much to answer that I would take that serious. All right. I don't understand why people love to accept soul sleep. Okay, yes, as we just talked about, okay? All right, Renee, we recently learned our pastor rejects the millennial reign. Does this make the church unbiblical? Renee, that's going to be your call. He's called an amillennialist. And that's going to say that he believes that there could be a wide range of what he does believe, but he's just saying this. He does not believe that there's going to be a time when Christ comes to the earth for a 1,000-year reign. So now what you're going to need to do is this something that's going to bother you? And because you have premillennialist, post-millennialist, and amillennialist, and it's sometime, not for now because it gets into some detail here, then we can talk about what that means. Maybe I'll make a post on that and help you understand that. But on this, it is not a doctrinal issue like like you didn't tell me he doesn't believe in hell, or he doesn't believe Jesus saves, or he doesn't believe that, God is over all, something like that. Those are doctrinal foundations that cannot be compromised. But in there are people that just do not believe us. And so this is just what they believe is going to happen in the eschatological situations that are presented in the Bible. So it's up to you, if you feel you're uncomfortable with that, to find another place, an assembly. But that's really your call on that, okay? It's like somebody said the other day, I think on here, they love their church, but the music, and I don't even understand what the situation of the music. I don't know if they're saying it's too loud, it's too soft, it's too slow, it's too fast. But they kept saying, should I leave? I don't know. I mean, are they singing something that is unbiblical? Are they treating, I went to one church, and they have this thing as, we were visiting, it was too celebrity. They're up there, and then while the guy is praying, all the band members are moving across the stage, and I thought they're making this sort of like a celestial curtain, some sort of a thing. I was very offended by this, and he's talking to God, and I glanced up because he's talking so fast, it didn't seem like a prayer. While he's talking, he's checking his music for the next one, so he doesn't even have his heart in his prayer. And I told my wife, I said, we're not coming back. We're not coming back. It was just a small thing, but it meant something. There was something among the staff that treated the worship, the corporate worship of the Lord, in praying on a flippant thing. And I just had a problem. I didn't want to get involved in a church that would feel that way. Let me see. Moving on down through the questions here. Let me see, still moving down. Steve, is your book in a good font form for older ones to see this good? One of our editors did straighten up the font before we put out the second edition, and I am being told by those who have purchased it that yes, it is clear on there. And so I would say that we are thinking of making a large print edition, but with everything going on in the ministry, that's had to take a back burner on that, but possibly we'll do that. All right. And Johnny says, shout out for the partners. Well, let me just take a look here and take a look and see if we've had some new partners here on here. And so I want to thank you all for joining in here too. Timothy Crane, thank you so much. Mary Flores, thank you for being a partner here as well. Jessica Gibson, I appreciate your coming aboard with us. And Linza Kuzmitsky also is one of our partners. Thank you so much for being with us here. Okay, Kay, yes, I do have a podcast. It's called, 3 words, Questions About Heaven. Questions About Heaven. I believe our wonderful moderators will put it available up there so you can read it, but it's available on virtually every platform. We pay rental on the platform through something called Buzzsprout, so it's available on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple, iTunes, and on there. And we're just overwhelmed by the response. The initial thinking was we would have 1,000 downloads. In the past year, we've had 50,000 downloads, and I'm just so happy. And so it puts a great burden that I would be responsible in putting out proper Bible-based teaching on that. But it's called Questions About Heaven. DW, is Yehoshua another name for Joshua? Yes, it is. Yeshua. Yeshua is a name. It's a very common name in those days. That's why people would say, if you said, I'm looking for Yeshua, and somebody say, well, who are you talking about? There's like 4,000 Yeshuas in our city. Oh, I'm looking for Yeshua HaMashiach. Oh, the Messiah, he's down at the pool of Siloam. You would give a title like we have a surname. There are 4 gazillion Brads in the country. Very few that would have the last name of Zockel. It's a surname. It delineates it better. Yeshua was a very common name. Joshua. Okay. And here's Ray from Nashville. Good to see you, Ray. Let me see. Moving on through here. Let's take a look. I don't know. This just popped up that I've had some claims, and I don't want to get into this because I said I'm not going to get into it too much. But this just came up, and I think that Teresa just put up this reference too. On here. Somebody said, God never told us that we should celebrate Christmas in the Bible. And I said, well, that would make sense because the scriptures were finished, the canon of the scriptures were finished in 93 AD. History tells us the first use of the term Christ's Mass, Christmas, wasn't until 1038. So these arguments get more and more ludicrous as we go along here. These are just common sense things. And so thank you, Teresa. You said something there which reminded me about it. Ray is asking, do we actually have guardian angels? Specific ones? No. The Bible gives us nothing about that would tell us that. Are there actual angels that are guarding? Plural, yeah, like on 1 Kings chapter 6, guarding Elisha and his students. The students' eyes are open to seeing guardian angels, cherubim, and actually the marauding army actually saw them and turned away on that. Ministering, Hebrews chapter 1 says, the angels are ministering spirits to us. Matthew tells us that we have, for the believers, that there are, for the new believers especially, there are angels that watch the face of the Father to do his bidding. Should we go down and help them, Yahweh? Is there something we should do? Yeah, it's very intriguing on the protective angels. But as far as individual ones, no. The Bible does not give us anything to give us that. Teddy, Teddy asked, when you say someone, are they a true believer in Christ? Is there a difference between a believer and a true believer? Really, what I would say is this. I really push because I'm finding out so much. Let me give you an idea here, Teddy. Good question. Yeah, Teddy's asking this question. Someone the other day came on and they made the tired old Christmas argument, and they seemed very pious. And at the time, I dedicate a day to deal directly with this, okay? And then I don't worry the rest of the Christmas season. So yesterday was the day, and this person come on here. So sometimes I'll go over to their personal TikTok page. I believe it was TikTok. It may have been here on YouTube. I don't know. But I went over there and then to address them more specifically through comments. And this is a person that became and their profile page was dirty, profanity on it, and things like this. So the reason I tell you this is there are a lot of people who think they're a believer, all right? So a lot of times you'll have Christians that will emphasize it. What really do you believe? And I've even had somebody on here say, well, I believe there's a God. And I said, well, you're not saved. That's it? And then I took them. Mark chapter 1, Mark chapter 3, Mark chapter 5. Demons are saying, Jesus, you are the Son of God. We do believe you are of God. Are they saved? Of course not. There's no repentance. There's no decision there. They're just recognizing this. Okay? If you look at the parable of the sower in Matthew 13, and you follow the mathematical reality of that, only 1 out of every 4 who have taken in the word and recognize it are actually saved. Only 1, only 25%, which leads me to the conclusion by Jesus himself that only 1 out of every 4 people who claim to be going to heaven are actually going to heaven. And Matthew 7 is very striking. Lord, Lord, haven't we done wonderful things in your name? Haven't we done churchy things? He says, but I never knew you. So that's what we're talking about, a true believer. Have they repented of their sin? Not just asked forgiveness, turned away from it, shown in their life they are living what they are believing. This is the whole book of James. You're a Christian, prove it. We don't see anything from you. Hear all this lip action. Oh, you think just because you believe in God? James 2:19. Even the demons believe, and they tremble. They have more respect than you do, and they ain't going to heaven. All right, that's what we're talking about, Teddy. Okay? All right, moving on down here to other questions. We're doing good. We have about 18 minutes. Ashley, why does God let Satan out of being locked up after the 1,000 years? There are reasons that we don't know that are beyond us in God's sovereign way. In other words, why did Jesus have to go to the cross? And why would he care about me? And why would he live in the Holy Land region rather than Rome? There's all kinds of questions we don't know. And God, in his infinite wisdom, has done these things. And Ephesians 1:10 does intimate that we will receive answers about that. All things under Christ, which is a term meaning all things will be summed up under Christ. It could mean that we're going to get answers then. But I would say this, one of the things that we see is this. The 1,000-year reign on earth, among other things, does give you the answer to this. There are people that will say, if we lived in a perfect environment, everybody would be saved. Everybody would be saved, and we wouldn't have to worry about the temptation. If everything was perfect, well, you got it, okay? Revelation 20, it tells us this. And in fulfillment of the prophecies mentioned in Ezekiel 40 through 47 and the call in Isaiah chapter 65 of the millennial reign, the millennial kingdom, you're finding it says like the desert will blossom like a garden and the waterways, the fishermen will be there enjoying. But then it says, and then the waterways end up in marshes and talking about there's still corruption there. The rebellion through that time in agreement with this teaching of 1 John, that the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life is what's pulling man down. Did you see? It never said anything about Satan. We can sin on our own. He just kind of encourages it as well, or puts things there. But we can make those decisions to do these things, just like what Paul says in Romans 7. I don't want to do these things, I end up doing them. And the things that I want to do, I'm too lazy to do. You know, the good that I do and the bad that I do, wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of sin? I thank the Lord, the end of the chapter says, through the victory in Jesus Christ. So that's one of the things. Mankind goes into rebellion and all of this bliss and beauty on the earth, and Satan's just there to just make a catalyst. Okay, you want to follow me or follow him? And many will follow him, and that's the final judgment. Let's see. Okay. Reading Matthew, it says the child is to be named Emmanuel, the name Jesus comes from. Why is it not Emmanuel? Well, you're giving us, it's just like what we just talked about right now. The spirit of Elijah will come. Well, that means John the Baptist, okay? It just tells you in Luke chapter 1, in the same way Elijah, well, he has one name and yet he's John. You'll have different names to describe. There are scores of names for God. El Olam, the everlasting God. El Roi, the God who sees. Yahweh Shammah, the ever-present God, Yahweh Shalom, the God of peace. Okay, you have a number of names, just like, for example, what would I be known as? Well, Brad, or Dr. Zockel, or Dad, or Neighbor, on there, different callings. I'm Uncle Brad to those, you have different names. You do too, all right? So, one way to understand who this Messiah is coming, and indeed another name is Messiah, the anointed one, Mashiach, which is then another name in the Koine Greek, Christos, which means the same thing, anointed one. Emmanuel, God with us, God with us. And then you have Jesus in Luke chapter 1. In Matthew, both of them, Matthew, Joseph is told, as well as Mary, you are going to call his name Jesus. Why? Because it means Jehovah saves, Yahweh saves. He is called Jesus because he will save the people from their sins. So you have these numerous names to give us another facet in the diamond. Who is God? All right, let me see. I think that I got down to all the questions here. And we still have 14 minutes. So while I'm waiting for the next ones, let me give you another announcement here while I'm waiting for the next batch of questions to come up here. And this is a very serious thing that I want you to put feet to your questions with me. I've had a number of people, I can think of specifically, people have said, and it has nothing to do with anybody here, but I have had in the past people say this: why haven't you been to Indiana? Why haven't you been to Ohio? I'm thinking of the specific ones. Why haven't you been to Connecticut? All right. Why haven't you been to Florida? Okay. Those ones come out. I haven't been to California. Do you know the reason why? Haven't been asked. All right. Sometimes that I feel that I need to break into new horizons, new ministry areas, new territories. But the quickest way for me to go is like what happened in Alabama. Atmore, Alabama, the pastor says, we want you down here. We're going to arrange it. I was there. Hamilton, Alabama. Our dear friend here, Christy, I think she's watching right now. Same thing. We want you here and over across the state line in the Mississippi Tremont. You come on. I did, okay? Dayton, Texas. We want you to come over here and speak. They got it, okay? If you have a group, a grouping, a men's Bible study, a ladies' Bible study, a camp, a youth group, thing. I'll give you an idea. Miss Danae is on here right now. She says, listen, if you're coming through the Eastern Shore, we will make a Bible study that night for you to come and speak. She's gathering together. I said, you got a deal. I'm going to do it. I think Danae's on here right now, because a church in Maryland, right next to Delaware, has asked me. They said, we want you to come. It's not if, it is when. So this afternoon, I'm putting it on the calendar. We're going to do this. So Danae's group is not a church, but it's going to be a Bible study. Hey, I'll go. So if you have a group, a grouping, and yes, a church or a camp or a conference, your church is having a Bible conference, or you're in a ministry right now that you are at a retreat, you're on staff and you're saying, we're looking for speakers, things like that, give me a call. That's the big thing. But my whole intent next year is to get all the way to the West Coast and back. So we're working on that. Okay. All right. Teddy, didn't Jesus tell us to stay away from people who act like Satan? So why doesn't he do away with Satan to get him away from us? Jesus has been dealing with him thousands of years, because this is God's plan of the introduction of sin is also in that, the great test, as C.S. Lewis says. God took the chance that you would accept him over all the temptations, that you've truly shown your loyalty in the face of temptation. This is God's timing. You see, what you're asking right now, Teddy, is what they were asking in what they are asking in Revelation chapter 6. Lord, when will your justice, when are you going to get rid of this one? He says, in my time, a little while longer. And then, of course, you see in Revelation chapter 10, he goes, okay, the time's over. The delay is no more. It's going to happen. So that's one of the many reasons for this. And in God's judgment and his wisdom, he has allowed this to happen. PM, how many years older is John from Jesus? We're talking within a year during this time, because Elizabeth and Mary are both pregnant. If you look at the passage, take a look there in those passages that we're talking about in the book of Luke, and you're going to see that Elizabeth and Mary stayed together actually during that time. So you're seeing it's within a year. Leilani is 43 years old, had a stroke. And what we're going to do is, she is talking about a very, very serious condition in here. And you can read it, friends. But Leilani, yes, dear friend, we're going to commit to prayer for you in this. And I'm going to add you to the prayer list. And to our partners here, if you're able to join us over in our partnership program over on our website, theheaventour.com. And then you'll receive, if you wish, you can actually say, I want to be part of this prayer chain. You can be on here as well, on here. Tommy Abrantes, thank you for joining us. It really means a lot. Thank you. And James Sneed, thank you for being a partner with our Heaven Tour ministry. Okay. Kay, asked by a church. Yeah, I mean, that would be one of them too. I've had a different one. Pastors asking me, I'll give you an idea. Tim Brown, who's on here, he said, would you come to Texas? And I said, he contacted me through Facebook Messenger. Would you come to Texas? I said, if I'm asked on here, if you're just saying, can you come? But there's nobody there to receive me or host or help me out on this. And so I shut up and there's two of us sitting there. Well, then I've traveled halfway across the country. And I said, do you have an assembly? Yes, I do. He says, I'm going to talk with my pastor. Within a day, we had it arranged. Okay, so the church did. The parishioner, the member, went to them and said, can we make this happen? I want to remind you, I don't charge a fee. Okay, if the Lord wants me to come, then we would pass the hat or anything or everything. So a lot of people say, well, what's it going to cost? I don't have a set fee. You're not going to get a form filling out, okay, this is what I need, this is what I need. I trust it. And this last year has been just wonderful. I mean, I think about it. We had some wonderful people over in Catoosa, Brian over in Catoosa, Oklahoma, and they rented out a hotel room. And I went in there and we had a wonderful time. And some of my friends are on here from Owasso that were part of that group there too. We're praying for Leilani. Good. There's Danae. And Danae, I was just talking about you in setting up in Delaware, that Bible study there. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Bear, I am keeping on where I have been right now. And the rest of this week is dedicated to where I will be going, God willing. So what I'm going to do is as I start getting the calendar ready, I would say by Monday of next week, I'll start putting down the potential places where I'll be going, stripping off where I've been. Because a lot of people say, well, why would I want you to come? Because a lot of churches that, somebody says, well, we want Brad to come to our church. And then the pastor goes, well, where's he been? Well, go over to a site. Oh, there's where he's been. He has, been cutting his teeth on speaking at different places around the country. Okay, so I keep that on there. So a lot of pastors will go and do background check on me. And this is one of the things they want to know. Have you had a traveling circuit? Yes, I have. Okay, so you'll see that in a little bit. Tom is asking for prayer for health reasons. We're going to do it, okay? Absolutely, Tom. Thank you so much for bringing that up. And then Sarah, we're praying for Sarah. Okay. And Kay, we'll be in prayer for your mom. This was kind of like the grief that we had gone through, especially my sister was the immediate caretaker for my dad when he slipped into Alzheimer's. And he became very aggressive and wouldn't listen and just gave her, and it just wore on her so much on there. So, yeah, we will be in prayer for you. And there's Miss Teresa giving some encouragement as we're talking about to Leilani about that. Wonderful, Teresa. Thank you for that, sharing that too. And we have people all promising to pray. That's wonderful to see. All right. Absolutely. Thank you for the encouragement, Teddy. I'm glad to help out here. Okay. Virginia, I fully understand this, but could you explain about a lot will be called, but few will be chosen? Well, this, Virginia, this is really the reality of Matthew 13. The sower spreads, and it falls on the soil. The sower, the word, is out. And what is in this parable that Jesus is giving in Matthew chapter 13? The field is us receiving the word, okay? Now, what's the response on this in receiving the word? Some is on thin soil and it goes away. Some among thorns and it's crushed. A good illustration about being among the world, being crushed by the thorniness of the world, the sins of the world, birds coming and picking, eating others because it never really took depth. And then finally, the one that is truly of the Lord shows it. The hundredfold coming back of the blessing and the witnessing and the love and the characters that speak of Jesus here on there. So you had the word going out to everybody, but only 1 out of every 4 there in that passage are actually making the decision to deeply take Christ into their life and take over their life. That's what that's talking about, Virginia. Okay. Teddy, when you pray to God, and that you can say, I appeal to you. This is what I do. I appeal to you as God the physician, Jehovah Rapha, and I'm asking for prayer on behalf of this one, and reminding you, Lord, though you don't need any, but I'm reminding myself, you are God the healer, Jehovah Rapha. Yes. Okay. All right, DW, many different translations relate to many people. What I say is, as long as it's faithful to the original to the original writings of the Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek. So this is your choice. God bless you when you find it. I find that that, as well as the ESV, is a wonderful reading for me. New American Standard's a wonderful reading for me. Young's Literal Translation is a wonderful reading for me. Legacy is also very, very powerful. So we find that. And I also love, about 95% of my memorization is from the King James Version, because many of the Bible scholars and mentors that I have said, if you started in memorization of a particular translation, stay with that through the rest of your life. And so as a child, in order to memorize, to receive free passage into these summer camps, these Christian summer camps, we had to memorize 100 verses. And my mom, remember, my mom, single mom, dad abandoned the family, no money, and she wanted us to go. It was $40 a piece. And there were 6 of us little elementary school zockles. And my mom, after they came and made a presentation at a little country church in Pennsylvania, we came home in the Volkswagen bus, and she got us into the kitchen of that country house in Pennsylvania, turned around, had us sit down at the kitchen table, and she goes, you're all going to memorize the scriptures. You're going to that camp this summer. You're going to memorize 100 verses. And we didn't kick against it, because what they did is they broke it down into there. But the Bibles we had in the house were King James Version, and so that's about 95% of my memorization is through that. You do what works for you as you're honoring the Lord. Okay? Let's see. Okay, let's see if we have other questions here. And we're looking good. Oh, we're down to the time 10:28 here. Johnny, thank you so much. I will be in contact with some of my dear friends here about, as I'm going through the schedule here, and asking you, does your church want me to come back on there? We're having another one. I'm working with a particular group over a wonderful leader. I'm not going to say his name right now, but yesterday we're trying to organize, as I told over on TikTok, we're going to organize a conference, possibly 2, one in April and one in September in Tennessee, in which we'll be hosting it. And then you're more than welcome to come. I'm thinking of that, where we will have the place. It's going to be unusual, but I'm coordinating with a couple of people that we might be able to establish one. And you say, hey, we'd like to come for a weekend retreat. We're going to get a camp, a retreat center, everything. Thank you so much, friends. It's time for me to head on out of here. Smokey and I are going to head down to the farmhouse. I've got some work to do, heading into town, doing some mailings and different things here in the ministry. Thank you so much for your love and for your care. This really means a lot to me. And moderators, thank you for your wonderful ministry. And God, as we talked about, blesses the little and the big as it's given to him. Just think of it, Luke chapter 1 and verse 6. They were righteous before God. In following the Lord's instruction, they were blameless. If we could all be that, boy, that would be a change, wouldn't it? Thinking about heaven here, thinking about Christmas, wonderful, wonderful promises. God bless you. Take care, and Lord willing, we'll talk soon.